This is Phantom Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Kevin Jackson for the first time. Welcome to the Phantom Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you, Phantom?
Doing great. Love to talk to people from around the world in a live format, and that's what we're doing here today. But before we get to the heart of your story, I always ask a couple questions of every guest. What motivates you, and why do you do what you do?
I would say the biggest reason what motivates me is I had to learn how to love myself. And throughout that journey, I just wanted to give back. And I realized that other people maybe feel the same way that I do. Maybe they struggle with loving themselves as well. So through that, I've learned how to build a community of people that we just struggle to just see our light and just realizing that we do have worth. And yeah, that just it's just a little bit about me.
Well, I always love to talk to creatives. I started this podcast initially to talk to singer-songwriters that were like independent or emerging back in 2016. And we've been on the air, over 1,200 episodes talking to people in the creative space. I see that you're a podcast host, you're a creative, you're a singer. So you're in that kind of space. I've always talked to people in that space.
Yes.
Your podcast is here, Cultivation with Kevie, a self-empowerment podcast. In relation to your singing, have you put out records and albums, or are you on like all the streaming platforms? What's your there there?
I'm working on a project right now. It's not quite ready yet, but it's basically it's going to be my debut to the world. It's a mixtape that's based on Doug Funnie. I'm very nostalgic. I'm a 90s baby through and through. So it's basically just me playing the role of Doug Funnie and me going through everything that Doug went through. And I'm going to be covering some 90s and 2000s songs. And I'm really excited to share that. It's not quite ready yet, but hopefully soon.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Everything's in the multimedia today. Everybody's wearing multiple hats,
Yes.
Like Phantom Electric Ghost is a band. Basically, it's all me. And then I kind of segged it into the same thing to be the podcast. So we're somewhat familiar that you have a podcast, you're doing music. So if you can try to use your stage name or your stage presence to kind of push things out. But then in terms of you've got a background as a nurse and you have a passion for storytelling. Have you found any synergies from that kind of empathy of being a nurse in your storytelling and your does that teach you about like vulnerability and things like that?
Yeah, it really does. I've been a nurse since I was 19 years old. I've been a nurse for about 15 years now. And it's really kind of just led me to finding myself and kind of finding what I don't want to do. But definitely, I love to obviously help people, and I love to just be a light to people. And it's helped my storytelling in the sense of I have a lot of crazy stories that come from that world. And it's helped my creativity because I'm a night owl because of it. And I feel like at night, that's when all of the creative juices start flowing. So yeah, it's something that I've been doing for a long time. And hopefully I get to transition out of it, but it's been the stepping stone for my life. So I just give gratitude to it.
Yeah, like your day gig. Every creator has like usually a solid, they got a day gig they're doing. Unless they're like a starving artist, which and most of us try not to be the starving artist, but
yes.
So like, how did the podcast evolve? How long have you been on the air with the podcast?
The podcast started during COVID. I believe I went live with it April 2022. So it's been about 3 years now. I did not envision it as what it is today. It's been a labor of love. So honestly, me starting the podcast, it's funny because I didn't know anything about podcasts. I don't know about you or other people out there. I literally heard God's voice tell me podcast one night. I couldn't get to sleep and I just kept hearing the word podcast. And I'm like, podcast, what does that mean? So I just interpreted that to mean that God was telling me to start a podcast. And literally the first episode is me in my studio apartment. I was in LA at the time. It's just me talking, telling my story. I had no format for the show. And now it's just really, it's been me just the inspiration of just kind of talking about what I've been through, self-empowerment topics. I've interviewed artists like you have as well, people that just have stories to share and what they've been through and what they've learned. And I've really just fallen in love with it. I've learned so much, and I love it. Yeah, it's been 3 years now.
The form is so interesting because like what is your form just video and audio or both?
Okay, so I started as audio. I knew nothing about it, and I definitely want to go to video and audio, but I'm so OCD, and that's a huge thing for me. I have all my videos saved, and I just need to start editing them. But I have everything saved, and I need to just not care and just put them out. But
yeah, that's kind of why I made a
yeah,
decision a
yeah,
while back. Like I started back in 2016,
okay,
like on this thing called Spearman. And what happened was this guy came to me and
hmm,
he saw my music on SoundCloud because I'm like an indie artist on SoundCloud. And
okay,
he said he wanted to do an interview. And I said, well, he wanted to do it on his podcast. I said, what's that? I didn't know what it was. So
hmm,
I was interviewed by this guy named Rock Tunes out of New York.
okay,
And then we liked each other so much that we decided to do a show about music for like 6 months. We did a show where we just talked about music. Then he ended up not being able to do it. And I said, what if I do what he did? What if I go and find people on Instagram and start interviewing? And it was all audio. Then in 2020, we moved to video and
okay,
we still do audio, but we decided to do it live. And I'm like a
mm,
jazz improvisational kind of
hmm,
experimental musician. I said, well, if I do it live, it'll have that vulnerability of in the moment.
right,
Well, I know a lot of people spend a lot of time by trying to make things perfect, but I kind of like
yes,
the idea of actually talking to somebody in real time and getting them to actually open up and have some vulnerable moments where it's not about pulling all their ums out or getting all their eyes
yes,
looking at the camera right. It's about like
hmm,
actually what we're talking about.
yeah, I like that. That's dope.
Yeah, so it's a different type of thing, and not everybody's into it. But it's just interesting. Like that people get into this platform. Like you like God kind of told you, some guy just pinged me, and then you got into it, and then you find it's like it's super enthralling what you can do in podcasting. Maybe you actually can get more people looking at you or listening to you than like as a musician. As a
Hmm,
musician, like yeah, I could get a lot of people looking, but I can get more people actually paying attention to me for the podcast, and then it segs into my music. So it's
yes, yeah.
so you find that like the engagement is really interesting. And like what are like your big stories about like people that you were able to kind of pull in that maybe you didn't think you would actually be able to talk to? Have you been able to find that kind of story?
Yeah, my biggest guest so far has been Tori Wilson. If anybody out there is not familiar with her, WWE legend, one of the biggest divas of her day. I met her at a retreat years ago. I think it was like 2019, and I was able to build a relationship with her. She notoriously really doesn't like to do interviews, but we built a relationship, and she told me that she would do my podcast. And I'm sure you've dealt with this yourself, Phantom. People will tell you yes, but it's almost like it's not really a yes. It's just in the moment they're wanting to maybe just agree with you or whatever. So I had to really fight to get her to be on the show, but it did finally happen. She was my season 2 premiere episode. So that was probably 2023. So it was somewhere around June 2023. That has been one of my biggest episodes, obviously, because it's Tori Wilson. And it's been really great because it was a different side of her, because my platform is mental health and empowerment. So I really didn't ask her many wrestling questions. A lot of interviews that she does, it's wrestling. But we talked about like, what has your life been like after wrestling? And what are
Mm.
some of the things that you look forward to like afterwards? And it's just been really cool. And I have a dream guest list and so many people that quote unquote have told me yes, but it's like, okay, when is it really going to happen? So
Yeah, it's time to
it's,
get them on the calendar. It's like sending
yeah,
that calendar invite, get them to commit.
yes, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's the hard part.
Hmm,
Yeah, that's interesting because like what ends up happening is over time, like you get this Rolodex of like you get like I get a lot of authors, and
yeah,
then sometimes I'll get their agents, and then suddenly if I
yes,
get one guy and then like he's got a bunch of guys, a bunch of people, like agent has a bunch of people and he sees I did it, then it's the same thing with like bands. If you get a bunch of indie bands
hmm,
and suddenly their manager says, "Oh," so I had one manager from one small label, we got like all 5 bands on the label. because you get one of them, then you get the rest of them. You
Mhm.
start like building up this Rolodex of people and say, "Hey, you actually do that,
Right.
and you actually deliver."
Yeah,
So
it helps you
it's
build
like,
credibility. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
if you can actually show up, just
Right.
showing up can get people to actually show up for you.
Yeah. Yes.
But self-empowerment is like a big topic. I've talked to a lot of coaches, like a lot of therapists. So
Mhm.
in terms of how you approach it, like what's your kind of like just style of doing it, of talking
Yeah.
about the topic?
Yeah. So I kind of said it a little bit before. Just learning how to love myself has been just a big journey of mine. And when I heard God tell me to start a podcast, I really had to sit with that for a minute, because if I'm going to start something, if I'm going to start a podcast, I wanted to think about what is going to make this marketable. Why are people going to tune into this? And again, what am I passionate about? Um, so I thought about that for a while, and I thought, okay, something that I'm passionate about that I really want to give my time to, and that I think would help people, would be talking about topics that are bettering yourself, things that I love to do. So I sat with myself for a while, and I just started thinking about things that I think would be beneficial, that I've always wanted to learn. I thought about people that I wanted to talk to. And it's really just become kind of like my diary in a way. It's almost been like just me. I'm very vulnerable, and there's nothing that I don't share. I don't care to tell some of my deepest, darkest secrets. And if it's going to help somebody, more power to it. I don't care to look crazy, or I don't care to embarrass myself, quote unquote. I just tell it. So that's been kind of my approach, is just being honest and just being who I am. And I've really built some strong relationships from it, and it's been really therapeutic for me.
Yeah, I think that's always interesting when I talk to like singer-songwriters or authors. And it's like that permission structure. What made you feel that like with like musicians, it happens a lot. It's like, why did you feel that you could just go and start writing your own songs instead of doing somebody's cover song, instead of doing that Beatles song? What
Hmm.
made you write your own song? What made
Hmm.
you think that you could actually put it out? And I run into a lot of musicians, like they're studio musicians or they work and they don't write their own stuff, right? And they're really good, but they just never got the confidence level to actually put their own stuff out. So they rather just work on somebody else's project or work on with other bands and not even be known that they're actually working with that band, or play piano on some record, but they don't even get no one really knows they did it.
Yeah, right.
So it's like that thing that makes you want that they gave you the permission structure to say, "Hey, I'm going to show up as me."
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you find that people like they find that when you talk about it that you get good feedback?
Yeah, actually, some of the things that I've been most afraid to share have been some of my biggest successes on the show. Trying to think of an example right now. So I've had my cousin on the show quite a bit. He's a dancer, and we often will have like heart to hearts at the end of the season, and we'll just talk about what we're going through. I kind of like call them lessons. Things that we've learned in the moment, or things that we've learned over time, and we just share them with people. And I've just been very vulnerable about things I'm going through at the moment, or things that I'm kind of ashamed of, that I want to just change about myself. And there have been people that have told me that that is something that they themselves are going through, and that they're glad to know someone else is going through it. And it just shows you how small the world truly is. Like, you're never really alone. And I just love that community feeling.
Yeah, it's like this idea when music, like if you vibe at a certain frequency, there's like a law of attraction. So
Yes.
if I put something out like on stage, it's immediately apparent to any musician, right? So if I go on stage, it's like a comedian. You either bomb or you don't, right? So if you connect, everybody pulls out the lighter. And the whole audience got the lighters out, everybody's waving, everybody. If you don't connect, it's like they're throwing tomatoes. They're throwing something it's like immediately
Yeah.
that you actually connected with the crowd. You get an instant, a lot of authors are like, oh, I wish I could get that. Because I gotta go to my beta readers. I don't know right away. It takes me a while to come up with this thing, and then I don't get that immediate, like the comedian or the musician. We get that immediate feedback.
Yeah. Hmm.
In a podcaster too, like we can get immediate, like, oh, did that episode do well, or did
Right.
it not? We can
Right.
see right away. Um, so it's just interesting, like that pivotal moment you're talking about God, making you feel that you could have that permission structure. Is that spirituality? Is that a big thing that you talk about in your work?
Yes, absolutely. That's a big part of my life. And I absolutely integrated into my show because it's just definitely led me. I'm a very spiritual person. I don't necessarily try to structure it in a religious way because I think for me, this is just me speaking. I think that, I have a relationship with God slash Jesus Christ, but whatever higher power that you have a relationship with, whatever it is that gives you permission or heals you, comforts you, as long as you seek that somewhere, as long as it helps you out, that's okay. But I don't like the rules or the lack or the box that certain I guess like religion can put you in.
Yeah.
I think it's stronger if you have an actual relationship. That's where most of my ideas and most of my healing and most of my lessons have come from is actually going to God myself and literally like me and you are talking right now, just speaking out loud, and then it'll instantly come to me. So just having that relationship has just it's how where I'm at today. So definitely spirituality, just operating in spirit and just that awareness and just that permission, like we've been talking about, just operating in that space has just it's allowed me to authentically be who I am, and then it's allowed me to give that to other people.
Yeah, and I think that ends up building like that law of attraction. Like you say, that you put out this vibe that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's
Absolutely.
okay to be authentic. It's okay as a musician, that kind of idea is like I throw this out in the world and see if anybody likes it, rather than being the guy that keeps it in the archive
Yeah.
because it's not perfect. Like this idea of perfection trap. Like musicians, we can run into it where like we'll have 100 versions or 100 all these
Hmm.
things sitting in the archive,
Hmm.
and then we got to get pushed to put it out, and then people say, you know what, that thing you were sitting in archive, that was like the best thing you ever wrote. You never, and you sat on it for like forever
Hmm.
before you put it out because you just weren't, you're too scared of it, you
Yeah.
know. And a lot of times you got to throw it out into the ether and let
Hmm.
the feedback come back, and it might hurt a little bit because like it's personal. I think a lot of people take things so personal that they can't take the hater coming back and saying, well, I hated it. I hated
Yeah.
it. So then then they were like, I'm going to keep everything undercover. I'm not gonna put anything out.
Yeah.
So that's the big struggle, right? Like, how much do you actually reveal?
Oh gosh, yeah, that is a big struggle. There's times when I'm editing that I'm like, do I really want to share this? Am I okay with telling people this? I would say I reveal at least 75% and maybe keep about 25%, but I'm pretty open with my story. I mean, my debut episode, I literally told my story, like the foundation of my story. And I'll be transparent here with you as well. I talked about my coming out story. I
Mhm.
talked about my sexuality and coming to terms with that. And I hate the stigma of that anyway, because it really shouldn't be a big deal. It's such a taboo subject, and it's just a facet of who people are. And some people, sometimes society makes it to be such this big thing that it's just,
Yeah,
it's
they
really
make it
not.
such a taboo thing. I mean, the
Yeah.
thing I always get is like, okay, you want to live in a box,
Yeah.
right? Your idea of freedom is you got to make me live in a box,
Right.
right? So your idea of freedom is to suppress my ability to be vulnerable
Yeah.
because that makes you uncomfortable. So what does
Absolutely.
that have to really do with you? Right?
Absolutely.
If I want to live out of the box, you said, well, no, you need to be in the box.
Yeah.
Well, what right do you have to tell me to be in the box?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I've hinted at things like I've not told every little thing. Like namely in my debut episode, I talked about how I have a toxic extended family, and I've not named names, and I don't think that I'll ever be the type of person that I'm going to just flat out say someone's name, because I do believe that even though that person should own up to what they did, I don't think that it's my place to like publicly shame
Mhm.
somebody. So there's things that I don't talk about, but I've been very open and transparent with like my journey. And again, it's like, it's not about like the gossip of it. It's not about, oh, this person's uncle or aunt called them this name. It's about that empowerment feeling of, okay, that happened to me when I was a child and it caused this in my life. And I took that and I finally let it go and I threw it in the trash and I turned lemonade from the lemons that gave me. And now I'm doing this with my life. And that's what it's all about for me, is how can I help other people? Because I know how that feels. I know how it feels to pretty much be not even the underdog. Like, I just know how it feels to really not love yourself, to feel unworthy. And I've navigated through that for so long. So I really just want to give back, and I want everybody to love themselves, because if there's anybody out there that has been like me, especially that young man who has contemplated killing themselves because they like somebody that looks like them, and that's wrong per society. I just want to help in any way that I can.
Well, yeah, because a lot of times people like to otherize people, right? So, like, if you, and the thing is, like, it's an easy game to play for certain people, because, like, if you otherize this group, you say, and I'm not gonna say what they are, but you say this other group is responsible for your lack of success. This other group makes you feel uncomfortable. So instead of looking in the looking glass and looking at that things that maybe you have done, or you have said, or the actions that you have made that have consequences, you say everything that happens bad in my life is based on this other group. And that ends up being, society has done that. You get the story, you go back to the lessons of the 1930s, at a microcosm or a macrocosm. Microcosm is like your personal relationship with your family. You could have a toxic childhood, right? You could be imposed like imposter syndrome because you didn't have self-worth because your father said you're no good. Until you finally get to the point where, like, I don't believe that, right? But that microcosm level thing it bleeds both ways into the group at the macrocosm, like the town, the neighborhood, the city, the state, the country, another country. So that those kind of behaviors, they bleed both ways. And until you actually start to understand, like, that looking glass self, and you come to terms that I'm okay, it's okay to be me.
Yeah.
Then you can fall into all kinds of bad loops.
I love that. That's great.
But like, my whole life is trying to get out of the bad loop and do something that's actually interesting. Or progressively, building, like that. Like, every step you take on the ladder gets you to the next thing, right? So if you are like all those steps, you can't, like, well, I kind of misstepped and almost fell on that step. And the 9th step, I almost fell, but I made it. By the time I get to the 12th step, I'm like here. But you kind of need to go through all of that.
Yeah,
To
absolutely.
get to the step number 12, right? So you can't kind of just be resentful of, like, step 9. I'm resentful with that. You're like, you have to kind of, like, embrace. It's like, I'm actually thankful for that.
Yes.
That's hard to get to.
Yes, it is.
Because the world wants everything to be like 0 to 100.
Yeah.
Right?
That's so true.
You think about, like, these people, they have these, like, programs. It's like, I'm gonna have this seminar, and in 3 months you're gonna get to where I am, and I made $1 million. But I would argue, like, that 3 months is not taking into account the 15 years that took that guy to get wherever they are, right? Or that person. So they're giving you the 3 months, but they're not giving you the 15 years. So it's really 15 years plus 3 months. And then you're wondering why you can't replicate it. Well, because you don't have the 15 years, or you haven't considered how to take your 15 years and turn it into something like he did. And they're only getting part of the story. So people are like, how come it's not working? Because it's like
That's
partial.
Yeah, that's really true. Like, I think so many of us are focused on the destination, right? Like you said, like that, the top of the ladder. But we got to think about the journey. We got to think about the progression to get there, like each step. And, and when you're talking about like these courses or these things that these people are selling, and it's like, get like me, do it how I did it, and just all of this stuff. And it's just like, yeah, I think you brought up a great point that you're leaving out the journey of how they are getting to the destination. Like, you're supposed to struggle. You have to struggle to get to where you envision yourself, or it's not going to mean anything, and it's not going to last, even if you do get there.
Yeah, because it's not sustainable. Like, if you like the fad diet, you
Absolutely.
could do that for 3 months, 8 months, 9 months, but are you going to do that for 30 years? Probably not.
Absolutely.
So you're going to go fall off that wagon and get back to where you were. It's like, well, how come it didn't work? Because what you do to actually progress has to be sustainable and incrementally get you in a better place every little like win. So every little moment you could have a win instead of like in a day, all you're looking at are the losses. So if all you're really remembering is the losses in that day instead of all the little wins, then where are you going to be? Like, your thoughts are all about the things you thought you messed up.
That's so good.
But it's like, it's hard to get people out of that loop. It's like that bad loop I always talk about. Like, when you're listening to some song, it's like, how come they just using that same drum loop over, and everybody's using the same sample, same plugin, same this? It's like, why so boring? Like, why can't you do something like Brian Eno and Bowie did? Like on Fame, why wouldn't you do something different? Why it was like something innovative? Because if you do something innovative, you're going to be standing by yourself when you first do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And most people don't like being standing by themselves because they don't feel safe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Because that wolf's at the door. Right.
Yeah.
And so if you don't feel safe, you're going to go back to the kind of herd mentality, back to the tribe, back to the group that's inside the gated place or the fenced in fort. Because like, you're so scared of what's outside that wall, like you're not going to be the guy that goes outside the wall.
Yeah.
Right? Because like, he might not come back. But sometimes you have to be like the people who are innovative. They take the risk.
Yeah.
And there's a risk reward. Now, you don't want to be too risky, but there's always a risk reward kind of thing. And if you're not willing to take certain level of risk, and like, what happens when you try to invest? You just keep it in the money market at 2%. You're not really going to get that far.
Yeah.
But it's always kind of an interesting thing, the challenges that you pursue, like, and how you push through. Like, how do you push through the things that are difficult?
I rest a lot. I'm going to be honest. I'm somebody that I take breaks. But I've learned to give myself grace. I would say that I give myself grace because I have been my own worst critic. I have been the person that I will put myself down, or I will diss myself before you even have the chance, or I'll call myself out before you even get there. But how do I push through the difficulties is you just, even though you take a break, you don't stop. That's the key. You keep going. And sometimes you have to pivot. You have to realize what is working for you and what's not. And it doesn't change the end goal. Sometimes you just have to go about it a different way. I've even though I see myself as a singer, I've not professionally put out any work yet, but I've always known that I'm a singer. And I Lord willing, I hope to get there someday. But I fight with OCD, and you've actually kind of talked about it in this episode. You talked about people that are afraid to like put stuff out, or they want it to be perfect. That's me to the T. But I think that you just have to accept and honor your gifts, and you can't be so hard on yourself. And that's the big thing, is I'm very hard on myself, and I have to learn how to give myself grace. And I have to learn that people don't really care as much as I do. When you're working on something, you think that people are going to laugh at this little minor detail or going to make fun of it. They're not even thinking about it. Like, you're the one that notices it. People don't really care as much as you do because it's just so insignificant. Like,
well, a lot of stuff is insular, because I can think of an example that I always give is this jazz fusion example. So you got like Herbie Hancock, Miles Davis, and this jazz famous act. Herbie actually hits the wrong chord for the composition. Miles Davis adjust his part to match that chord. The audience doesn't even know there was a mistake. But Herbie Hancock was thinking like Miles is going to yell at me. I made a mistake. And then later, like he found out, the Miles said, well, you know what? There's no bad note. There's always an opportunity. So when you're playing live, the ability to be able to kind of go off of that bad note, and nobody even knew that they skipped a beat. And this can happen with an athlete that gets practices certain plays, but then they see something that's not what they practice, but they still respond to it. They don't freeze. The person that freezes is kind of dependent on everything going exactly as planned. The person that can actually kind of on the fly figure it out kind of lets go of some of that and actually lives in the moment. And that's a hard place to be, because we always kind of want that plan to happen, but to be willing to let go of the planning and actually live in the moment, have like recognize situational awareness for the moment you're in.
And that's so hard, isn't it? It's so hard to, especially as a creative, to let go of that vision. Like you're so stuck on what you thought it was going to be, and quote unquote, you make a mistake and you have to just go with the flow. That is so hard sometimes.
And some of the best work in music are accidents, what we call happy accidents.
Yeah.
As a producer, we find if you go back and listen to old tapes of famous records, you hear all these mistakes on Beatle records that they actually went with. Like a lot of the old analog stuff on tape. If you really listen into the studio gear, because I'm kind of crazy that way. I listen to stuff because I'm kind of producer engineer level, and there's a lot of errors that they actually let go through, because you know what, like a painter, sometimes that brush stroke or that sound stroke wasn't what you wanted, but it's actually what you needed to do.
That's so good. I love that.
And when you get to a point where you start to let go, a lot of great artists, they get to this point, they get to Hendrix, they like would let go. And they say, you know what? I'm just going to pick this one. Or like a Neil Young. They kind of have this ramshackle, or like a Keith Richards. He's kind of known for like a ramshackle kind of weird timing. His timing is not perfect, but it's kind of perfect for the Stones. As a rhythm guitar player, he's not on the beat a lot. He's all like a little off. But because he's off, it gives it this ramshackle, like Exile on Main Street kind of sound that the Stones have, especially in the 70s. It's like, well, how do you get that? Well, you get that by letting go.
Wow.
You know, if you're too like anal about it, you won't get
it. Yeah.
You know, it's like somehow you have to know what you know. Like you did your 10,000 hours to get to play the guitar or play the trumpet or use your voice as a singer. And then you have to know in a moment, it's like, you know what, my voice is great. I just have to kind of go with what I actually feel, right? This comes into play. Like if you've got like a song you've done like 100 takes, sometimes like the fourth or third take, the earlier take is closer to what you really wanted to do. By the time you get to take 100, you've kind of destroyed your original intention. So did you want to go with your original intent, or you're looking for this mystical intent that you never hit?
Yeah.
That's kind of the process over time. You start to realize, when you talk to like a lot of famous musicians, they go with the earlier takes. Like Elton John is famous for saying like Yellow Brick Road. He went for like third, fourth take on the whole record. Most of the stuff is like a third or fourth take, because they got diminishing returns after that.
Yeah.
So it's that's a hard place to be.
Yeah.
You might want to keep on trying to fix it.
Right. You keep wanting to perfect it. Wow.
But like we learned from the past, from some of the masters, you would have thought they would have gone crazy trying to perfect it, and they kind of like let it go. And you're like, oh, that's interesting.
That's a lesson. I love that.
Yeah, and you can apply that to a lot of things, you know, because I do software engineering, and we used to do things where we would wait until it was perfect. But nowadays, you'll see these on your phone. You get these updates every day on your apps, 1.1, 1.5, 1.56, whatever.
Yeah.
Because we just put it out and then we fix it after. See, we can constantly push out updates, so we don't have to be perfect for that moment. We just do what we knew. We do what we know at the time. And if we miss something, we'll fix it. And it's kind of like a metaphor for life. Like you could work like that. Software works like that. But it's hard to let go. But like it's a way to kind of like, oh, like maybe I could adopt some of these things, and actually get something out.
That's a great mindset.
Because otherwise, like your things won't actually be in the world.
Yeah. Wow. They'll be in our drafts.
Yeah, because like you can always come out like you can have a remix. Like this happens in music today. Like you can have different variations of what that song could have been, and you can keep on putting out like here's version 5, here's this version with the bass line, here's a version with these vocals, there's a version with a different style, and people actually like it. When you go to find out, it's like they like the remixes. They like the different styles. So then you can just keep on putting them out.
Mm.
But in terms of the nostalgia, like going back to the past, like a lot of people want to go back and they want to like recreate the 1950s or the 1970s or the 80s, whatever zone they thought was the best. Instead of like, well, what about today?
Yeah.
Where are you on like nostalgia versus like being growing and self growth?
Yeah, I'm very nostalgic. I'm kind of stuck in the 90s right now. I love the 90s. Like I'm like stuck in 1996 at the moment. But I like what you said. Like, what about right now? Because I feel like if we get caught up in how things used to be, we are missing the beauty of what about today? Like, what about what's happening right in front of us right now? I think that and it's okay to be fond of the past, but I think that if we get too caught up in that, we are going to miss like what we could take things from the past and we could like improve them or upgrade them a little bit and make that today, So that's kind of what my project is. It's going to be called Nostalgic AF. Actually, it's going to be a mixtape based on Doug Funny, and it's basically going to be me playing Doug Funny with a twist, and it's going to be me covering some 90s songs. But I do want to incorporate some today elements as well. But I think I like the point that you made, and I think that is some food for thought.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting because like I am because I'm a musician, I have some periods I like a lot. I like the 1950s and 60s and 70s, the birth of the singer-songwriter, like the Beatles, like using the studio like a canvas. And so there's certain things where I would like kind of compare, like not that I don't listen to stuff today, but if I listen to it and I say, well, where's the bridge? Where's the chorus? Where's in terms of like song structure, like if I see something, this thing's all loop, this thing is just a hook, then I might be kind of critical. But then it's like there might be a song that's all hook that I like, right? But then I'm kind of like, well, I kind of like the idea like these writers actually had variation and build up and space. There's space between the notes, and so I'll be kind of critical of like, oh, it needs to be in the canon. Like when you learn like literature, like they take Shakespeare and all the classics. If you do something that's outside of that, it's well, you can't write. But is that really like a Jack Kerouac? Is like, is that not good writing? Well, it's not Shakespeare, but it's still writing. So it's like beat writing, beat poetry. It's like, well, there's still a place for it. So like, hip hop, rap, people when it first came out say, oh, that's not music. And now they're like, oh, yeah, it is music. It's poetry.
Yeah, I think a lot of things are subjective, it's what you view it as. Like, I don't think that there should be a standard for everything. I think that's the beauty of art. But I'm with you on, I hate that music today is so short. I miss the 5 to 7 minute songs. I miss like just hearing the instrumental and letting it breathe for a minute versus like the song is 2 minutes and it's like the song's already over. Like
there's no room to kind of get to like, if you think about like a Hotel California.
Yeah.
Right? These songs today would never even get or like Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody.
Mm-hmm.
These are like suites.
Yeah.
These are like classical music has these suites and movements. Jazz has things that go 15, 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Progressive rock, yes, band, yes, and jazz has had these big, long epics. Like songs in the 70s, 3 to 4, 5 minutes, some of them 8 minutes, 9 minutes long. And you're like, well, why is the attention span so short? Well, you kind of look at social media. If you're on your TikTok looking at 30-second, 90-second things,
Yeah.
right? And that's where you're getting all your media is come from these quick hits. And your mind gets trained to only like the quick hits and not have any depth to actually review. Like on vinyl, I'm a child of the 70s.
Yeah.
We didn't have a playlist. If you put the needle down, you actually listen to the whole side. It's a different way of listening. Like
Yeah.
I'm kind of trained to listen to albums. So if I go find an artist, I don't just listen to their playlist. I'll actually go back and listen to their entire record. Not a lot of kids do that today.
Yeah, you're right.
And I think if you think about it, like that's like leading the cliff notes to a book.
Yeah.
Do you really know that artist if you only know their hit single?
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't know the depth of an artist by their single. It's the B-sides and the deeper tracks that teach you who they are. Just when you read a book, you got to read the whole book, not just a cover synopsis.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think like our young people kind of getting like short shift. If you only get the cliff notes, if you only get the cheat sheet, you're kind of cheating yourself out of the whole thing.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. You're missing the deep cuts, man. You're missing yeah.
And I think it's like you want somebody when you put out your EP or your project, you want somebody that the depth of it isn't going to be just whatever the most popular song is. It's going to be the deeper thing that makes it like an album or makes it a project. Even like Sgt. Pepper's wasn't a rock opera, but each song kind of belongs there, and it's actually best listened to as an entire suite. And kids today, they might not get that. It's like when you listen to Sgt. Pepper's, you need to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not just one song. And so I think people are kind of missing the point. Because if you don't treat music as a true art form where you actually turn off your video game, turn off your TikTok, and actually just listen to that one thing. Don't be like playing the game and on TikTok and watching TV. You got my daughter 25 and she got like 5 devices open.
Right.
Which one are you paying attention to?
Yeah. Yeah, it's more like background noise at that point.
Yeah, what is it? What is that you're actually doing? Because you're not giving any one thing any depth of attention. And then we wonder why sometimes people have like shallow or not connectedness.
Yeah.
Or disconnectedness, or what we call in sociology, like anomie, which is this idea of you're disconnected from society because you kind of can't figure a way to connect. And I think we got a lot of disconnect points.
Absolutely.
So how do you think, given that problem, what do you think is the way to solve it? Like what you do with your podcast is that you're trying to solve it in that way.
I've never really thought about it. You bring up a great point. My episodes typically are about an hour long. So I don't really do short episodes, but I think that as an artist, I think that you just put out your art. I think that this is just my approach. I think that you put out something that you love, you put your heart and soul into it, and hopefully they listen to it. I don't really know how to make people like improve their attention span. It's kind of sad, but I do. I mean, I'm going to say that I'm more of like a hip hop head, more of an R&B head. So I miss like Kanye West pre today, like his OG stuff. I miss like the beats that, like we've already said, like the 7-minute long records. I miss like the intros that were like a minute to 2 minutes long. And I mean, I grew up on, my father is gone now, but I used to tease him and say, I'm trying to think of how I would say it to him, but I would say like, nobody's listening to like the 70s or 80s or leave that where it's at. But now I find that that's what I'm listening to more than ever. I would listen to like Denise Williams or
Mhm.
Star or just people like that.
Yeah, yeah, because the songs, they tell stories. Like,
Yes,
older songs tend to tell stories.
yes,
Older songs tend to
yes,
have, like, the sections in them, like
absolutely.
intros, outros,
Hmm.
second choruses, they yeah, they basically have a structure that's interesting,
And I
right?
miss the 12-inch versions too. Like
Yeah, yeah, like the
those were,
remixes. Yeah,
yes,
yeah, I
hmm,
mean, I'm a big Prince head, so I'm a
yes,
so I'm, like, listening to Sign of the Times, right?
yes,
And I'm
yes,
going into, like, the really long stuff that he did. Like,
yeah,
even if you go back to Purple Rain, if you're a big Purple head,
hmm,
a lot of Prince's songs on that record are actually, like, 15, 12 minutes long, and they were
hmm,
cut down. And
hmm,
if you're a Purple head, you
yeah,
actually know the long versions.
yeah,
And the Prince was like this had this ability to make these really long songs and then cut them down and
yeah,
to make them super popular. But he was a very experimental artist, and I was always enjoyed actually listening to the full length versions
hmm,
because they reminded me of like Stevie Wonder, they reminded me of like Marvin Gaye, they
yeah,
reminded me of like Parlor and Funkadelic, and they're
yeah,
kind of like these things go on forever.
hmm,
Like the Funkadelic stuff is like super
oh
long.
yeah, oh yeah, hmm,
And so that to me is like, you know, that's where I'm coming from. It's like, yeah, that real funk, like a James Brown song that
yeah,
goes like 10 minutes long.
yeah. Y'all had stamina back then because I don't know how y'all were staying on the dance floor for the 10 minutes long
Yeah, like
songs. I love it.
popcorn. He's singing popcorn. He's going on for like 9 minutes. It's like, yeah, something about that there's like, yeah, well, it's James, so you got to listen.
Yeah,
No matter what he's saying, you just got to listen. You just got into it, to me, it's like that fun of, uh, of that kind of moment of back in the day, the classics. I don't know. I kinda I look for new ones. I look for people doing stuff that's innovative, and there are people doing it in the kinda underground,
yeah,
in the mixtape world, in the
mhm,
underground, in the SoundClouds, and all those types of places. That's
mhm,
where there's a lot of cool stuff. It's just that the big corporate media
yeah,
pushes us toward this stuff that I don't really like.
yeah,
I like to hear the independent operators, the independent artists that actually are doing things that are really cool.
absolutely.
They might be doing a retro 90s thing with their own spin on it, or a retro 70s thing with their own spin on it. It's still like it's coming from that, but it's their own vision of that. But it
Mhm,
sounds like that's kind of where your head's at
yeah,
with what you're doing.
yes,
Well, I think that's a cool place to be. That's the place I like to be.
I'm with you.
But I think the music to me is very cathartic. I don't know, how do you feel? Like, when you do it, when you're working on it, you say you're singing, sometimes it's like, I just play even though there's no audience, like, I'm sitting in my room with my piano
Yeah,
behind me, and I'll just play for hours just because I like to play,
hmm,
whether or not even if nobody hears me, I kinda use it to get through something. Do you use music like that?
absolutely. That's exactly it. It's cathartic. It's healing. It's not even for other people. It's for how it makes me feel. It's when I feel most connected to God when I'm singing. I mean, I rarely have my eyes open when I'm singing. I'm in a different world.
The
I
zone.
can't. Yeah, it's you're in a zone, like you're in just a different place, and sometimes I'm not even aware of what I'm singing. I'm just letting it out, and like you said, it's been hours, and there's just nothing like it. It's just a beautiful. It's healing, is what it is. That's what I'm gonna say. Is it's healing.
I found a way that, like, I have a lot of multi-tracks that get triggered as soon as I start playing. And so what I would do is, like, I just go into these kinda like, I'm just gonna jam, but I actually have it so it'll automatically put on my recorder. And then I go back later and I'll listen to it, maybe not the same day.
Hmm.
And then I find that I can pull the gems out of it and start
Yeah,
to create something. And it's
yeah,
kind of an old way of doing it. Zappa
hmm,
and Beatles and Neil Young is like, if you ask how they recorded, they did that kind of process.
yeah,
They were always having the tape rolling, is what they
yeah,
would say.
yeah.
Because you don't know if you put it down, right, you don't wanna miss it, and sometimes you put something down that's like, "Whoa, that's it," and
Exactly.
there's a
Hmm.
lot of bands that's like, "Hey, the version I put down in that moment is the one we actually used on the record." we strung it together with other stuff that we went and overdubbed. But that moment we tried to reproduce, we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So we just kept it because
Hmm.
that's what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you find that like that's why you had to keep the tape rolling is the idea, because like you never know when you're gonna put that thing down. It's like, hey, that's gold. That's it. That's the
Hmm.
thing. And
Hmm.
so that's why I always tell artists is like always put it down. Put down everything you can.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think it helps in your. It's kind of like when you go to a therapist, they tell you to keep a journal.
Yeah.
You keep that diary, keep that journal. It's very healing, even if you don't use it.
Yeah.
Right? It'll get you through something. Like you said, it's cathartic.
Yeah. And thank God for, like, I'm an iPhone person. Thank God for the voice recorder, because ideas will come to me in my sleep. It's hard to get any rest because you have a melody that comes to you out of nowhere.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's great today because like, I tell people like you don't have to have the multi tracks and stuff I got. You can just use your
Right.
voice memo on your phone.
Right.
You just put it
Yeah.
down. Back in the day, like these artists, they'd be in a restaurant and they'd be type writing their lyrics on the napkins
Yeah.
or the
Hmm.
back of menus and the back of like anything they had. You'll see in
Right.
this catalog of these famous artists. It's like hotel like paper. They was in the
Hmm.
room.
Hmm.
It was written on the back of an envelope. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the human process is like that. The creative process tends to be like that. It is
Yeah.
kind of wherever you are, you
Hmm.
get this download from the muse,
Yes.
and you're like, you got to put it down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's always funny because the people say, "Well, what's your method?" Well, it's kind of like whatever serves the song is the method,
Yeah.
and that method could be different from project to project. So I can't give you like a secret
Yeah,
menu that's going to get you
absolutely.
that hit
Absolutely. Hmm.
because
Absolutely.
it's kind of like what it is there's that present moment thing that actually works, right? So if that works, then that's it. But like people who try to manufacture or clone, well, you can do that. You can sample, you can clone. So you could make a copy of the Beatles, you get the monkeys. It's not
Yeah,
exactly the Beatles,
right.
or a Bad Finger, which is their own copy. They made a own copy of themselves on Apple. They went and created a band to kind of clone themselves. So, I mean, you can get like that, but eventually you get the saturation. That's why I see like in the market they get like you'll have like a Beyonce and you get like how many copies of Beyonce? We have a Mariah Carey. How many clones of Mariah Carey?
Hmm.
How many clones of Taylor Swift? They get clones, and you try to until you actually overdo it and oversaturate the market, and then nobody wants to hear that, or they're only going to listen to it from the gold standard.
Absolutely.
So that's where maybe you should use your own voice because that's
Yeah.
not what's out there.
Yep. Hmm.
And that's the permission structure you want to give to people is like, it's okay to be you, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, because somebody else is actually feeling exactly what you put down. That's what you
Yes.
find. Like you found that, like from the feedback you told me, that people actually said that, yeah, I was feeling that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I just believe that for me, through the darkness of what I've been through, spirit led me to realize that there's only one of me. Like you said, there's nobody else like me. Even when I feel like I'm imperfect, which I am imperfect, but when I feel it in a bad way, when I feel like there's no reason why I'm here, or I don't have any gifts, or I'm not talented, or whatever, whatever is going through my mind at the moment when I'm feeling lack, there still is only one me. And I believe that all of us have something within us that we were put here for a reason. There's a reason why we're here. And share what you have. Like if you have something within you that you can't stop thinking about, if you just it just takes up all of your time. You're a daydreamer. You're somebody that you just keep dreaming about it all the time. That is God leading you to do that thing. So do it. Let out your heart. Like let put it out there into the world. So like you said, there is only one you. So be you authentically, and nobody can ever take that away from you. Nobody can ever duplicate that. Like, there may be somebody that may try to do it like you, but they can't do it exactly like you, because you are unique, you're authentic, and you're a gift. So when I really just started to get out of my, I don't even know the word that I want to use, I guess my frustration, and just say, stop doing the woe is me and feeling like something's wrong with me, and just opening up and staying in my gift and staying in my light, then that's when I realized that I'm not alone. There's somebody out there that feels it too, and just put it out there, because this is a human experience, and there's somebody that may feel it, and it may be for somebody, it may help them out. So just do it.
Yeah, I think it's super important just to kind of, put everything into the ether that you can. Like, and the thing is like now it's not a big deal. Like it used to be in a big deal that you had to afford the tape. Now it's just like your voice, it's your voice memo, it's like the RAM, it's the gigabytes on your thing, you can move it around. That's not the limitation. Now we can kind of do it yourself, DIY, in terms of like that's what music industry has today, is like, and it really is your secret sauce. It is your own thing. And that's where I run into people like, they'll come to me as a producer, and they'll have something, right, and they'll kind of clone whatever's in the top 20. And I'm like, well, I'd rather hear the song that you're too scared to show me, right? Because that is probably more of what is going to work, because that's you. And whatever is out there is already out there, right? They're already doing it. And so you're going to come in there and try to do something that's already out there. What's more impressive is to take what you have, your secret sauce, the thing you're kind of scared of, and let's go double down on that and try to make that thing the best thing it can be, right? Let's make the vocals tighter, but not change them to match somebody else. Just record them better, use better effects, you present something different, like take that chord and run it through something, or adjust it, but they'll not rewrite it, but just make it better. If you can take that originality and just make it more presentable, instead of trying to put in some cookie cutter thing. That's what I like about really great producers can do that. The ones I actually try to, emulate.
Yeah.
They're the ones that they actually got the best out of somebody, but didn't really try to make them sound like somebody else. They got the best out of them. And that's the way I think. That's my approach. Is there's like, why try to turn somebody into somebody else? Just make them self-actualize.
Exactly.
Well, I hope we can get more people to get into that mind frame, because to me it makes it interesting. Like if we get more voices rather than fewer voices, you kind of, I don't need the monopoly on voices. It's like everybody's like merging to get one voice. I rather like, let's diffuse it. Let's like have more voices. But that's kind of where we are today. We've got your website. I'll put it back up. So if people go to keviethedreamer.com, what do they find there? Like a way to get to all your media?
Yes. So you'll find out a little bit more about me. It has my story. It has my blog, which has all of my episodes of my podcast. I soon will be having merch on there. I'm currently working on a journal that I will be very soon putting out. I'm steadily working on this music project. I really hope to have it out soon. And yeah, it's pretty much just my central hub. It has my social media, ways to follow me and support me, and pretty much just my internet home.
That's great. I want to let people know that's fully clickable on the podcast platforms that we're on. We've been live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and on Kick. And we will be on all other platforms by end of day tomorrow. That means like Facebook, Spotify video podcast, Apple podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon podcast, many more. We'll create a landing page for everybody to check out whatever platform they like, and we'll send that on to you. So I want to thank you again for being a guest on the Fam Electric Ghost podcast.
Thank you so much, Phantom. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.